Welcome to the Unraveling the Scriptures channel. Surely, you know the history of the ancient Israelites, the Hebrew people, the people of God. But have you ever wondered where the Israelites really came from? What would their ethnic appearance be? In this video, I'll address a question many have asked me and that continues to provoke debates and theories. What was the appearance of the ancient Hebrews, the ancient Israelites? What would their ethnic features be? Have you ever asked yourself this question? In this video, we will discuss exactly that. What was the appearance of the ancient Israelites? Are modern Jews genetically pure Israelites? What was the color of the ancient Hebrews? What were their features? Before starting the video, I'll consider archaeology, especially regarding the Hyksos people in ancient Egypt, to underpin the discussion about the ethnicities of ancient peoples. I'll also take into account the tomb of Ramesses III to talk about the ethnicity of ancient peoples, as well as Genesis chapter 10, which deals with the dynasties and the peoples descended from Noah after the flood and who populated the whole earth. Additionally, I'll consider the geographical context of these characters in the ethnic formation of the Israelite people. The history of the Israelite people begins with their three patriarchs. The first patriarch, who is not only of the Israelites but also of several other peoples of similar origin, is Abraham. Abraham came directly from Iraq, more precisely from ancient Mesopotamia. According to Genesis chapter 10, he was a descendant of Shem, Noah's son, and therefore, his offspring was entirely Semitic. Abraham was part of the Chaldean people, thus being a Chaldean Semite. This is the first point for us to understand more deeply about the Semitic peoples, their ethnic traits, and physical appearance. Abraham married Sarah and they had a son named Isaac. Isaac was the second patriarch of the Israelite people. Genetically, he was a pure Chaldean because both Abraham and Sarah were Chaldeans and Semites, descendants of Shem. Isaac, when he married, chose Rebekah, who was half Chaldean and half Aramean. The Arameans were descendants of Aram, son of Shem, therefore, they were also Semites. Isaac and Rebekah had two sons, one of whom was Jacob, who became Israel. Jacob moved to the land of Paddan Aram, the land of the Arameans, and married two women of Aramean origin, Leah and Rachel. Thus, in the three patriarchs of the Israelite people, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, we observe genetic and ethnic continuity, as all are descendants of Semitic peoples. Abraham and Sarah were Chaldeans, while the matriarchs Rebekah, Leah, and Rachel were Arameans. This genetic and ethnic proximity reinforces the homogeneity of the Israelite people in their origins. Right after Jacob and Joseph arrived in Egypt, they end up staying in the land of ancient Egypt. Jacob dies there, and Joseph also passes away in the same place. With the arrival of the Israelites in Egypt, the 12 sons of Jacob settle and marry Egyptian women. It is important to highlight that Egypt, in the time of Joseph and before him, was already mixed and inhabited by a group of peoples known as the Hyksos. This group entered the land of Egypt around 1900 BCE and established dynasties of several pharaohs, who were hated and detested by the native Egyptians. Despite the hostility, there was a considerable mixing between the Hyksos and the descendants of the Egyptians. The Egyptians, descendants of Ham, had dark skin, while the Hyksos were Semites. From this mixture between Semites, Hyksos, and Mizrahites, Egyptians, people of mixed origin with brown skin emerged. The Hyksos entered the land of Egypt around 1850 or 1900 BCE. They established dynasties of Hyksos pharaohs, promoting significant mixing with the Egyptians, who were more numerous. The Hyksos were not a single people but a group of peoples who infiltrated and adopted Egyptian culture, although they were not of Egyptian origin, descendants of Mizraim. As illustrated in the mentioned image, we see a woman of Hyksos origin, with oriental features and lightly tanned fair skin, next to a native Egyptian man. This demonstrates the mixture of Semites, Hyksos, with the descendants of Ham, specifically the Mizrahites, the ancient Egyptians. It's important to note that the presence of the Hyksos in Egypt is confirmed not only by archaeology and Egyptian dynasties but also by the Israelites' familiarity with these peoples. In other words, the Israelites were already quite familiar with their genetic relatives, the Arabs, in Egypt. It's very interesting to observe that when Joseph is taken to Egypt, he is led by the Ishmaelites. These Ishmaelites were Semites and were already well mixed with another Semitic people, descendants of Abraham, the ancient Midianites. In the scriptures, we can see examples like Esau marrying one of the daughters of Ishmael. Additionally, the Midianites are frequently mentioned alongside the Ishmaelites due to the merging of these peoples, all descendants of Abraham. The tradition among the ancient Semites of marrying within the same people or, at least, from the same genealogical tree continued in Egypt. Although the Egyptians mixed with the Hyksos, we have biblical basis to affirm that the sons of Jacob married Hyksos women in the land of Egypt. A notable example from the scriptures is Caleb, mentioned in the book of Joshua. Caleb was a Kenizzite, a group associated with the Ishmaelites, and also Jewish, evidencing the mixture among these peoples. We can also notice the tradition of marrying people from the same people among the Israelites, who often avoided mixing with Canaanites, Egyptians, and other pagan Semitic peoples. However, there were occasions when they ended up mixing with these groups, including the Egyptians and the Hyksos in the land of Egypt. For example, Joseph married an Egyptian woman named Asenath, whose name likely indicates a mixture with Hyksos people, meaning the woman who sings, or desert lark, in Assyrian. The Semitic peoples, including the Israelites, are neither white nor black but oriental, with a yellowish skin tone that tans easily in the sun. They possess distinct features from European and African peoples: hooked or arched noses, elongated faces, expressive eyes, slightly thick eyebrows, and wavy hair, usually dark brown. It's uncommon among them to have light eyes or blonde or red hair. In the case of David and Esau, the original reference to their features doesn't suggest they were red-haired but rather ruddy, indicating a sun-bronzed skin tone. Esau, for example, means hairy and not red-haired. These details help understand the appearance and physical characteristics of Semitic peoples in antiquity. The Israelites, from their origins, were people with a yellowish skin tone, descendants of Oriental peoples from the Middle East, more specifically from Ur of the Chaldeans and Aram. They are described as people with yellow skin in the tombs of Beni Hassan, dating from 1800 to 1900 BCE, where the ancient Hyksos, who were Semites and genetic siblings of the Israelites, are represented with a different skin tone from the Egyptians. While the Egyptians, descendants of Ham, have brownish skin, the Semites have an oriental yellow skin tone, with distinct features such as the arched nose and straight or wavy hair down to the shoulders, differing from the native Egyptians, descendants of Mizraim. After leaving Egypt, the Israelites headed towards Canaan and ended up mixing with some Canaanites, disobeying God's orders. They also mixed somewhat with the ancient Egyptians, who were already partially mixed with Semitic peoples, which makes the genetic load of the Jewish descendants of the Israelites to be mostly Semitic in appearance. Another very interesting point is the confusion that many people make, amplified by theorists on the internet and even on YouTube. They claim that the ancient Israelites were white people with blonde or red hair. They argue that David was red-haired, so the Israelites should have been as well. However, the Israelites were Semitic people native to the Middle East, not Japhetic, and therefore did not have features such as white skin, light eyes, blonde, or red hair. These characteristics are evidence of Japhetic genetics, not Semitic. Semitic peoples aren't Japhetic. Ashkenazi Jews received that name due to their mixture with the Ashkenazim after the diasporas, mainly after 70 AD. Over time, they mingled somewhat with European peoples, adopting quite European characteristics, similar to the descendants of the Ashkenazim. The Ashkenazim gave rise to many peoples in Northern Europe, including Scandinavia and several other European countries. However, this isn't the appearance of ancient Israelites. Although Ashkenazic Jews are indeed Jews, they are not genetically pure, which is why they call themselves Ashkenazi Jews, a mixture of Jews and Ashkenazites. Although they have some Semitic genetic heritage, they've considerably mixed with peoples descended from Japheth, resulting in traits like light eyes, extremely fair skin, and blonde hair. However, many of them don't exhibit Semitic features. Therefore, claiming that ancient Israelites were blonde, white, or extremely fair is ignoring the true origin of the Israelites. There are theories on the internet claiming that ancient Israelites were extremely fair, blonde, or red-haired. Additionally, there are theorists suggesting they were black peoples. However, none of these interpretations align with the scriptures or the true origin of ancient Israelites, nor with archaeological findings about Semitic peoples and their appearance. Israelites were mostly of a yellowish tone, a result of mixing with some Egyptians, who, in turn, were mixed with the Hyksos. Many Israelites were born with a light brown skin tone, a result of this mixture. None of them were purely Semitic, yellow, or Hamitic, black, but rather displayed a light brownish tone, demonstrating an origin that blended black and Semitic descent. It's interesting to note that Semitic peoples, like Arabs, have a skin tone that tans easily under the sun. This is evident in a Semitic family, where the father and son have a light skin tone but easily tan. For this reason, Semitic peoples and Jews in antiquity often wore turbans and headscarves to protect themselves from the sun. Ultimately, ancient Israelites were primarily yellow, with a skin tone slightly bronzed by the sun, and some were light brown. It is important to highlight that Shem, Ham, and Japheth were brothers, reinforcing the idea that regardless of our ethnic origins, we are all brothers. May God bless you, and see you soon.